right now we're going to catch up with a gentleman I haven't talked to in quite some time, but he's had a busy summer and he's got a new promotion and going to be pretty happy with where things are with his team. Dennis Lindsey, Vice President of Utah Jazz Basketball Operations, joining us here on the Bill Riley Show today. How are you, Dennis?
I'm good, Bill. Cool intro with Tom Petty, one of my favorites.
I miss Tom Petty already. He's been gone about a year, and he's one of my favorites too.
God bless his soul. He was an inspiration to a lot of people.
So how's your summer been, Dennis? I'd say it's, from the outside looking in, not been too bad.
You know, it's I don't mean to damper expectations or anything. It's expectations and look, free agency class are a little bit like college recruiting classes. You know, everybody thinks they've had the best one in the off season, and then they show up and your team is either good or not. But hopefully, you know, Bill will come together in short order. We did have significant change, but it's veteran change. It's skillful change. It's change that I believe, at least so far, has the right motivation to come into the group to accomplish what we want to accomplish.
Well, you're absolutely right. Everything looks good on paper. You've got to go out and be able to execute it as well. I'm curious, you go into an offseason with a blueprint and a plan. Everybody does. And you guys are no different than just about everybody else. But after now a month and a half, and things that have settled down just a little bit, Dennis, how close did your blueprint and plan come to fitting what you hoped? And when it finished out, how close did the final product and where you are right now come to fitting where you hoped that blueprint and plan would be?
Sure. Well, a few things, Bill. You know, the draft, free agency, trade deadlines, if you will, are the three most dynamic periods of change inside of NBA seasonal structure. And we work hard and very much point towards those three periods. And in each period, you and our fans can rest assured we have multiple plans. And sometimes you get plans where you think that you have two or three plan A's, and that's a good dilemma. That's the quarter that you want to be in. Sometimes you're in a position where you may not have the assets, or you're financially leveraged, or you got the wrong character amongst your players, and you may have to back the team up and lose a deal sometimes to move the group forward. And, you know, those sometimes aren't our highest priorities, but yet, you know, you still have to make those type of deals as well inside of team building. And so luckily we were in a good quarter with a team that was ready to win, with a few assets that we've accumulated over the years, with healthy players that have produced well beyond their contracts. So as you start to look to make deals with other teams, hence the Mike Conley deal, there's a interesting long-running conversation between us and Memphis. As you start to look to free agency, we felt like we had two great alternatives. One, keep Derrick Favors, or two, look to add more shooting and skill and see if you can get a close facsimile to Derrick, which we were able to do in Ed Davis. So, you know, many times you have your objectives that you want to do, and for whatever reason, that free agent or that team doesn't have the same objectives that you do, and therefore there's no deal. So, you know, it's safe to say that things lined up in a pretty unique way. It was, you know, we've been rolling cap in cap room and flexibility for 5 years, and we wanted to solidify that and solidify our status, hopefully as a contender. And again, we'll find out what the results are as soon as we start playing the games.
Dennis Lindsey's with us, Vice President of Basketball Operations with the Utah Jazz here on the Bill Riley Show. Let's back up to something you touched on there for a minute. It's the Mike Conley deal and the discussions with Memphis. February, there were obviously discussions. Nothing came to fruition. June, a deal happened. So what in your discussions with the Grizzlies, Dennis, changed drastically or even subtly from February to June?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, Bill, not much. Look, you have to, anytime you get a player of Mike's experience and status and contract level, you have to be able to financially stack a trade, is how we phrase it, to make a trade within the NBA collective bargaining agreement trade rules specifically. So there were only so many ways we could stack a trade during the deadline, and those talks stalled. And look, Mike has meant a lot to the Memphis Grizzlies. The only way I could put it so you and the fans understand, imagine John Stockton at age 31 in this franchise trading, a truly great player, but who's also a great family man and person. And so those type of decisions weigh heavy on any organization. So, we just continue to keep the lines of communication open with Memphis and, frankly, other teams. And then what happened more so than anything is Memphis was able to move up in the draft order to second. They take a very significant talent in Ja Morant, so they now can envision what's next at that position and to get him ready. And timelines are such where Mike is trying to accomplish, things with a more veteran and ready team. And that's where good deals and fair deals can be made. So really not much changed inside of those conversations other than Memphis was able to select a point guard with the number 2 pick in the lottery.
When you're picking somebody to come to your franchise, and especially, as you mentioned, Dennis, a franchise that's ready to win and is at a point now where you're not just wanting to win, but you want to contend in the West, it's more than just basketball. It's a total package. What was it that you guys liked about Mike Conley? And the second part of that is, how do you see Mike helping Donovan Mitchell get better?
Sure. Well, Mike and his career really speaks for itself. I can just, highlight a few items that are, stating the obvious. I think his experience, his character, we always talk about Jazz DNA. There's really a seamless fit. And we're even more excited now we've taken a month to get to know Mike and his family and the people that are close to him. And from a playing standpoint, I think his precision, if you just watch how he plays, his ability to become an excellent open shooter, one of the top 15 open shooters in the league, to his ability to pull up deep from three, his right and left-handed floater game in the mid-paint is quite unique. His precision with his passing, his low turnover nature. So I think that experience, that discipline, that precision, all will be things that Mike, as much as anything, leading by example, not only for Donovan, but really for our whole group on how you handle your work, how you comport yourself professionally. And look, our young guys are good people and good professionals, but you can't have enough of those people. Frankly, my job is to collect as many good people as we can that are skillful inside of their jobs, whether it be a scout or an analytics guy or an intern, in this case, a player, give them resources and then get out of their way. So, upper management will let Quinn and Mike and the rest of our significant players do their jobs.
Recruiting collegiately, you hinted at that earlier, and recruiting on the pro level, they're two different things. You're dealing with adults and guys that are frankly businessmen of their own companies, CEOs of themselves. When you're talking about the NBA world, college, you're talking about 16 and 17-year-old kids. But in the free agency period, you're recruiting, and I know that behind the scenes some things probably happen, but you've got a shorter period of time to do that. When you're going out and adjusting on the fly to guys that are moving and guys that may be on your list that go someplace else, and then you come to a guy like a Bojan Bogdanovich who maybe you've got a relationship with an agent or maybe somebody on the staff has worked with him before, what's your message to him, and how well does he know your organization when you're trying to sell him on uprooting his life in Indiana and coming to play for the Jazz and Quinn Snyder and Dennis Lindsey?
Yeah. So, we work really hard inside of our relationships with all agents, but in particular, the power agencies that have the majority of the players, and in this case, Wasserman Group and Darren Matsubura and Jason Rainey and a much wider group. And that's where I want to give my group, an upper management and Quinn, a lot of kudos. David Morway, Justin Zanuck, Steven Swartz, Walt Perrin are all gentlemen. And David and Justin specifically have been agents. It's one of the reasons why we decided to bring them into our upper management structure. And so Steve Starks and the Miller family have supported us. Our free agent presentations now over the last 3 or 4 years are probably running into millions of dollars in commitments of what those that paraphernalia looks like, what the video looks like, what the gifts that were allowed inside of the rules of free agency look like, iPads selling our city, selling our state, selling our organization. And so when we do meet with a player with the experience and into the level of quality and Boyan, he has a lot of questions. His agents have a lot of questions. And what we try to do is we try to be real. We pull back the curtains, and we'd rather undersell and over-deliver. I saw Pop successfully do that over a 20-year period in San Antonio and 5 years with him, where we wanted the player to understand what our program's about. And frankly, it's an easy sell. Our state, our organization, the fans, the arena, our practice facility, where Quinn's moved to inside of being the preeminent development program in the league, and Quinn being authentically interested in development, not just development of a 21-year-old draftee, but a 27-year-old Joe Ingles or a 31-year-old George Hill. So players, they it's real simple, Bill. They want just a few things. They want you to keep them in safe harbor. They want you to tell them the stone cold truth as soon as you know it, even if it's something that maybe doesn't line up with their top priority. They want you to give them a plan where they can contribute to the team and improve within their role. And then they want to feel confident the coaches can give them a plan to help them win. So being the last team standing is a realistic goal. And we check a lot of those boxes. Hopefully we check all of those boxes by this stage in our program. And we're very compelling. If we didn't pull off the Mike Conley trade, we had several max level free agents that were ready and willing to come. I can't say for sure they could, because you have to take those meetings and things have to line up. But we just felt great about adding Mike, and then Mike really being an accelerator for an Ed Davis, for a Jeff Green, for an Emmanuel Mudiay, for Boyan himself to say, hey, look, I like what you guys are putting together. I like the way the ball moves. I like Rudy Gobert being the best defender in the world, and Donovan Mitchell's charisma and dynamic athleticism, and then you put Quinn in the mix and his coaches in the mix. It's frankly an easy sell when we've been sitting in free agents the last couple of years, to be frank.
Well, I was going to ask you the difference in sitting in those meetings and making those pitches in 2019 versus when you got here, Dennis. Does it feel like the image of the organization, which has always been good? Let's not kid ourselves. The Jazz have always had a good reputation. But do you feel like the pitch is easier, or it's an easier pitch to make, or players are more informed about this club now?
So a little bit of all of that. Here's what I'd describe. I inherited I inherited a great situation from Kevin O'Connor. We had young players. We had a winning team. We had a great ownership group. And look, the arena needed to become more modern. Our practice facility needed to be bigger and more integrated to how our players move and have the latest and greatest technology and recovering modalities. And we had to hire Mike Elliott, our VP of Health Performance, who's an expert and to keep players healthy and perform at the highest level. We had to hire Quinn. It took a while for him to implement his development program, so we have proof of concept. But the bones of the organization, the structure, the DNA, what Coach Sloan was able to create with the Ladens and the Stocktons and the Malones and the O'Connors, and what we needed to do is polish it, make it more modern to the NBA, and then just tell the story, and then again have proof of concept that you can come here and be an international superstar like Donovan Mitchell's become, like Rudy Gobert's become. You can win Defensive Players of the Year. We had to, breathe life into our defensive integrity that the Jazz had with Mark Eaton and Karl Malone and John Stockton. So, it's been a process, and, that's the best way to do it here. The best versions of the Utah Jazz have been those that have been, you've drafted, you've developed, you've parlayed up via trade, and then you augment it in free agency. Now, you can maybe make the argument that we've turned the dial a notch to where we can maybe parlay up or get a core piece in Bojan Bogdanovich in the meat of his career at the right time. So there's a lot of people that I haven't mentioned. Linda Luchetti inside of Player Services that have contributed to those efforts, and I'm very grateful for the group that we've put together with the Millers and the Randy Rigbys and the Steve Starks.
Couple more minutes here with Dennis Lindsey, Vice President of Basketball Operations. Jazz coming off a fantastic summer so far, and then they get to go into fall and then put that all on the court. I had the pleasure about a week and a half ago of sitting right here in my studio with one of your favorite guys, I know by your public comments, Derrick Favors, as he was heading to New Orleans, came in and sat down for an hour, and he, for a guy that was traded, he could not have had better things to say about the organization in his 8.5 years here, Dennis. I'm curious how important it was for you personally as the basketball VP to be both transparent with Derrick in his representation and try to do right by him as much as you could when you made that decision to move on from him.
I think transparency is a good word. Being real. Look, Wallace Prather, Derrick's agent, Derrick and I, there are a couple hard conversations that, Derrick wanted to have with us relative to his role way back when Rudy started to emerge. And look, you get it. Is there a place for me? And, I had to have a few relative to Derrick and his bone bruise on his knee and where we wanted to take his weight and how that would allow him to play not only better but much longer, and use Tim Duncan as the example as Tim cutted weight as his career advanced in the NBA. And Derrick bought into that. Derrick bought into that when I had a lot of people telling me he wasn't going to buy into it. And so over the years, it's just like, he's become a son, over time, because we've been through so much together. And, for the longest time, for last year, he was, the last player standing that I inherited, even though that we had re-signed him a couple of times. In free agent negotiations, we never took a shot at Derrick on what he wasn't. We, lifted him for what he was, and we got good deals that gave him generational wealth and allowed us to continue to build a team. So when the time came when we decided, hey, look, we wanted 48 minutes of spacing, that Bojan was going to be the priority, and we told Wallace and Derrick, that it could come your way and we could stay big, or we could go with more skill, just depending upon how we're able to potentially replace Derrick. And then Ed Davis is interested. And our first call was to Wallace and Derrick and said, hey, this is how it's going down. And sometimes you can help an agent and a player move on to what's next and do it in a first-class way with a lot of integrity. And sometimes you got to put the organization in front of maybe the player's interest. And sometimes the player, vice versa, their interest in front of the organization. We get that. That's called business. But in this case, I'm sure there were probably other deals that if we would have really worked hard on, maybe eked a few more assets out of. But I thought it was really important to listen to Wallace, listen to Derrick. There's been a true partnership, and we were able to get a couple key second-round picks that replenish our second-round picks that we've used in other deals, and we're able to get Derrick to a great spot where he'll be an excellent player, and we get him closer to his hometown of Atlanta where his family can see him play. And so really it's how NBA business, that it moves beyond business, should be done, in my opinion. And now we have a lifetime partner in Wallace Prather that will always trust that our words are bond, that we'll try to do the right things, even though sometimes those things don't line up. And then again, with Derrick, he deserved a good spot, and so I'm very proud. I was proud of anything that we were able to, engineer a soft and good landing for him.
Last thing for you, Dennis, and Dennis Lindsey's been kind enough to give us a few minutes here on the Bill Riley Show today. It's been kind of a wild landscape-shifting summer around the NBA and especially the West. You're in it. You're in it and part of the game, but you're also observing everything else. Was there a wow, oh my goodness moment for Dennis Lindsey this summer as you're sitting there with Justin and your staff and looking at your Twitter account and Woj bombs are dropping or the bottom line on ESPN's crawling? Did you have an oh my moment?
There were a few. I would say this: it's an amazing league to be part of. I'm proud to be part of the NBA. I'm proud to have stewardship during this time of the Utah Jazz and be associated with LHM Sports and Entertainment, the Miller family, all the people that I've mentioned, and more. I would say this: a lot has come to the West, and you've seen certain teams that have lost a few players, but who I believe will still be really tough, formidable competitors, and so we're all kind of gauging without the competition where we're at inside of that competition landscape, and unknowns always make us anxious, but I'm really looking forward, Bill, to the competition. I wish we could start tomorrow with the games, but we can't, and so we'll go through the rest of the late summer and early fall and handle our preparations, but we're really looking forward to getting our team to come together so it's a true team that our fans can identify with a style of play and the level of competitiveness that we play with, and then we'll find out. If when the stars move to different places, what exactly that means, and no one really knows yet. But again, we're anxious for the competition, Bill.
I was going to say, it sounds to me like you're pretty excited to see how your guys match up with all that too.
Yeah, I think so. Look, you're in this business for a few reasons, but one of the more important ones is to be the last team standing, and we've worked hard to bring the program to this point, and we'll see. There's going to be great teams in the West like there have been really in my 24 years. It's been amazing the run that the West is on, and Milwaukee in the East and Philadelphia in the East. And I like what, ironically, Boston has done with their group and a couple of their picks and the addition of Kemba. So there's going to be a lot of teams that come together and a lot of teams that don't. There are going to be teams that are healthy, that are fortuitous, and there are going to be teams that get a little banged up. And if you're banged up in an inopportune time, it spells trouble. So hopefully we'll get some good fortune on our side. I'm very confident the players will take Quinn's lead and I'll put out on the court what he envisions for us. And again, we'll be ready for the competition when the competition comes.
Dennis, thank you so much. Good chat. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it. Dennis Lindsey.